Good morning, Kyle. Thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm having a great day. Thanks for having me in.
It's absolutely a pleasure to introduce Kyle Noseworthy. He's a person who I've been watching, person of interest I've been watching for years on YouTube on different channels. You can talk about a couple of those channels, but the reason he's here is because we had done a project about 4 or 5 years ago where we actually designed a knife together and he created it for me. So why don't you give us a little bit about your background, Kyle?
You want me to cover how I kind of got started?
Sure, absolutely.
It's a bit of a long
People just
story,
really
but
want to hear your accent. That's what it's about.
I try when I get in interviews or anything like this, I try to turn it off and dial it down a little bit.
No,
So,
no, no. Dial it up. Dial it up.
so I was a university student, had just gotten married, and I had been carrying a pocket knife my whole life. Just spent a lot of my life in the back country, out in the woods, campfires, hiking, that type of thing. Where I live here in rural Newfoundland, it's just what people do. You just spend your time in the woods, fishing, hunting a lot as well. So I always had a knife in my pocket and always had kind of a proclivity to knives and edged things, I'll say. While I was in university, a friend got me into whetstone sharpening, and I just quickly became fascinated and kind of obsessed with whetstone sharpening to the detriment of some of my studies, right? But
That's the only way you become good at it, though.
well, with whetstone sharpening, it does require quite a bit of investment, yeah. But the more I started sharpening and honed in my skills, I was getting requests. I was documenting some of that process online. So I would upload an occasional YouTube video showing how to sharpen. And I like teaching, and I was actually in university to become a school teacher. That's what I did my degree in. So I love to teach. And so I was teaching how to whetstone sharpen. And I would start getting requests. Hey, can I mail you my knives to sharpen them? Absolutely. I'm a broke university student. I can use an extra 20 bucks here and there. So it kind of went this way, and I eventually started a little business called Atlantic Sharpening, partnered with my friend, and we were covering the island here and taking mail-ins as well, doing a lot of whetstone sharpening, which eventually led into a little bit of restoration type work. If you want to see a first goodie here, so I
Oh
eventually got
yeah.
to the point where I would have this is a beautiful forge craft knife here, just sent in by a client of mine. And so I was whetstone sharpening, and I would eventually get to a point of I'd get a request like, hey, I'd like my knife sharpened, but it's also got a busted handle. I wonder if you could do something with the handle. So I had been a craftsman working with tools ever since I was a little kid in my grandfather's shop. So I was no stranger to that type of work. And so I would, this knife has been sent in now for sharpening and to replace the plain old cheap wood
Oh
scale
wow.
handle with a beautiful curly maple, right? So this project is just finished up. This would be kind of how the evolution went of my business. Eventually, I would get sent in pieces like this is a beautiful old Premier here that I just finished up.
Oh wow.
So
Did,
this knife
did you
has
did you post that one yet? Because it looks like a video I just seen from you recently.
um I don't know if I've shown it on a piece of content yet or not, but I've done so many of these. I've become, I guess, a little bit of a go-to guy for these. But this has come in for a full blade refinish. This was dented and pitted and scratched and a lot of damage. So it's been fully refinished. New handle, everything has been disassembled and reassembled.
Fantastic.
So once the restorations got to that point, so we went from sharpening to restorations and leather work, and I'm just building up my skill set. Once you get to this point, you say, well, the only thing left to do is to build
Make a
your own
knife.
knife, right? I had been sharpening professionally, leather work professionally, big custom elaborate leather working projects, high-end restorations like this. So it got to the point that I said, I need to make my own knives. And it was KN knives right from the beginning. The very first knives were stamped KN. Then I developed my own, the first pattern, which was the bake apple pattern. This has kind of become a staple of my brand, this beauty right here. I built the
I'm sure a lot of
first,
our viewers have seen you, selling those. Those
the
seem to be
bake
one
apple,
that you can get most of the time in stock. The rest of them you got to get
right?
lucky.
stocking has been an issue, trying to keep up with the pace of demand for sure. But the bake apple is one we definitely focus on. Customers, clients all over the world seem to really enjoy the bake apple design. But that's kind of the evolution of the brand. And I've went through, multiple different workshops. When I finished university, I was still building my YouTube channel, and that was getting quite intense. I was seeing a lot of traction on my YouTube channel, and at a certain point, I was teaching now. I was a high school teacher, but I was really loving this business I had built. And I'd come home from teaching in the evenings. Of course, teachers are, I'm going to offend some teachers now, almost part-time work. So I'd come home I'd work at K&Knives before I went to school to teach in the morning. I'd come home at night and I'd work until late in the night, working on my knives and restoration projects. And I got to the point where I had to make a decision, do I want to remain a teacher, or do I want to go all in with K&Knives and my business? And
Were
talk
you
to my
married at the
wife.
time?
I was married with our first little baby. Yeah.
That's great marriage
Um,
advice. Just work, work, work. That's good.
it works for us. We're both, my wife and I are very motivated people, driven people. We just pour ourselves into our work and each other. That's important too, so that things don't crumble around you. But got to that point where we talked and we said, you know what, I think I want to make the leap and go all in on K&Knives. And that's what I did. It was a little bit rocky out of the start because I had to take K&Knives now from a part-time project to being my full-time income and my work. And that's what I did. It's been nothing but up from there. I've gone through a couple different workshops since that time. We were renting a little apartment, and that's probably, judging by when you said I built that knife, I can't remember the exact timeline. Do you know what workshop I would have been in when I built that knife that you and I talked about?
It doesn't say anything about the workshop. I actually have text. What he's referring to is, I found from 2007. It is a drawing from Kyle. I'm going to frame it. It's going to be worth money one day. Of a knife that we developed through a couple different stages that I had visioned in my head, taking from other knives, which we'll show in a few minutes, which came out beautiful, and I'll be showing you that. And this is one of about probably 40 emails we had going back and forth in March of 2020 about different nuances that we wanted in the knife, kicking ideas back and forth, him giving me his knowledge, and me telling him what I really wanted out of it, and he was telling me if it was possible. So I'm not sure exactly what shop it was, but it was March 2020.
So that would have been my second workshop. So I started when we left university, we moved into a little rental apartment, and they had a little garage out back where I started my business. And you can have free run of the old shed. It was really beaten down, no heat, really hardcore little shop, no
Good
insulation
that
in
you
the
live somewhere
walls.
warm, yeah.
Yeah, that first winter was real tough, man. I tell you. Eventually, I spent a couple years there. I believe in 2019, we bought our first home. We actually moved to what was my growing up town, my hometown. So actually bought my childhood home, and there was a big attached garage, really ugly, gnarly, basically a wood storage room. People heat their homes a lot with firewood here still. And I totally tore out that garage and built a knife shop, beautiful little knife shop. And that's where your knife would have been built, right
Oh,
there.
wow.
So I spent
Very
a couple
cool.
years there before the business built to a point where I had outgrown, and I knew it was time for a new space. I have a desire to grow. I'm really passionate about business and growth. And so that's when in January 2023, I took occupation of this building that I'm in here now. So it's been quite the evolution, quite the set of progress, but it's a lot of fun.
So what got you into it? Did you say your grandfather or somebody had a shop? Like how did you get into this area of doing this type of work? Or was it just a passion that
I
was in you from when you were a kid? Were you
I
always
it was
messing with things?
Yeah, it probably two patterns from when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time in a workshop. My grandfather on my dad's side was just always tinkering in a garage, always, you know, and he would get me in there and he'd get me set up with a couple scraps of wood and play around with the drum sander and scroll saw, you know, cutting out pieces. And I just love tools and building. And I was at that right from a little boy. And so I just loved working on anything, still do. Anything with an engine, a motorcycle, from restoring old tools, building or carpentry work. I've had my hands in it all over the years, and just love tools, love working with things. But the other side of that is I was fortunate enough that I spent a lot of my childhood in the backcountry, in the woods. So carrying a knife or an axe was just a normal part of my day back then as a kid. That same grandfather was just a big part of my life growing up. I'm so thankful for him. But he spent a lot of times a lot of time in the woods. Big firewood cutter, just absolutely lived for it, loved it. And so I would chase him in on my own snowmobile all winter long, and he'd cut, and I'd pick from the saw and pile the wood sled. So just, you know, and then you'd stop every once in a while for a campfire and you know, boil the kettle and have a lunch, that type of thing. So really into the
Great.
tools, of course, always carrying a knife and axe, and a lot of time in the back country. That all kind of merged together to, you know, building, you know, premium knives. It just
Wow,
all
that's
flowed
fantastic.
together, right? This
Kyle,
is
that's up my alley, man.
So
Do you happen to have
another
your
fun
grandfather's?
project here.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
Do you happen to have your grandfather's favorite splitter?
No, I don't.
So you're gonna tell us a good
My
story.
unfortunately, my family was not the type, and this is where I sort of differ. I'm the different one in the lineage. My family was not the type, and has not been, to have heirloom items. And that's something that I really play on with my brand, because it's important to me to have heirloom items, right? I want something to pass down to my children.
Agreed.
I only wish my grandfathers had a you know, a favorite pocket knife or something to pass down to
Right,
me.
right.
It just did not happen. A lot of their items were just get the cheapest version, wear it out, throw it in the trash, and get another
Yeah,
one,
another
right?
one.
And but I have the pleasure in this business. I have, you know, I'm not exactly sure about this specific knife, but I get sent in knives like this, that this has gone from great grandfather to
That's
grandfather
great.
to father, and now father is having it restored so he can give it to his son when he's old enough, right?
That's awesome. And my
And the
kid
weight
actually
of,
has my first two pocket knives that I ever had when I was like in fourth or fifth grade. It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I carry a lot of weight. Not that I'm a terribly materialistic person, but those things have a lot of meaning to me. And so when I build knives, that's I really pace my brand in that direction. You know, these are heirloom knives. They come with a story, built here in rural Newfoundland, kind of out in the sticks. You know, they come with a nice story as it is. But now you build in your story, and these aren't modern day throwaway items, right? These are
Right.
items, knives to take care of and to cherish, and to go through 100 deer hunts and then be passed down to your grandson, right? That is my
Percent,
goal.
100%, 100%. Well, let's get into your knife that you designed for me and show. I want to show the viewers exactly what my impetus was and how you helped me get there. All right. First of all, I don't know if people know, besides knife work, you do your own leather work as well. And as you mentioned, you do
Everything
your handle work. Got a little light on that
everything is
side,
done 100%
right?
in-house here, yeah.
So this was designed by Kyle and myself. I mean, by Kyle, but you know, I gave him the input. I wanted a minimalist approach to a sheath, which is exactly what he did with a dangler. He gave me the mother of all danglers, not danglers, I'm sorry, ferro rods. So I had to get a special fat ferro rod over here, which I don't think will ever wear out. Like we're talking about heirloom. This will be heirloom to my kid, this ferro rod. Fantastic, right? And what I wanted was a knife, which I'll show you a couple of examples based on a few designs, but they just didn't have it right. I got these meaty hands, very meaty paws, and I usually lose my hand in a lot of these handles, even if the knife designs are nice. So what I asked him to do first of all was take a big fat piece of steel, which he hadn't been used to working with. I don't remember the thickness on this, but it's not your usual. I remember we went a little thicker, and you said, if I can get the steel, I can do it. It is
Yes.
O1 steel. And my specification, can you tell by looking at it what the thickness is?
Somewhere 3/16 to quarter of an inch. That might be quarter of an inch there, but
Yeah,
it's
I
a big
remember you
slab
had
for
said that
sure.
you hadn't worked with something like that before. And I did want a quick taper point on it. That was very important to me because I do want to be able to drill and not worry about it. I broke the tip off of one of my bark rivers. No fault of the bark river. It was more of a hunting knife, and I don't want to worry about that when I go in the woods. And I
Right,
asked them
right.
also, unusually so, for an actual Scandi grind. So this is a 0 Scandi grind. You can see the light reflecting off of that, and I have used this knife. It's still a razor. So to take such a thick knife and come down to such a thin edge and give it the sliceability is somebody who obviously knows what he's doing. You know anybody like that, Kyle? The main part to me, which they say about guns a lot, because I'm a gun guy, I know you are. By the way, I saw a great video on you restoring a shotgun the other night. It was fantastic. Um,
Oh,
is
that's a nice piece of maple right there.
yeah. So what we did was we were going for some stag at the beginning. The problem was the size of the piece
Okay.
of stag we needed would cost more than the knife. So we wanted to keep it a little bit more reasonable. So I think I found, you sent me a bunch of websites, and it's another thing. Kyle's a great resource. He'll, tell you where to look for stuff if you want to do the legwork and save yourself some money. And I found this stabilized maple, bird's eye maple, I believe. And it just came out gorgeous.
Curly maple, yeah.
Curly maple, yeah. Came out gorgeous. The belly was something we designed, as I showed you on the original, because I wanted to, I'm starting to get a light in here, sorry. I wanted to get it to lock into my hand. And this, with my meaty paws, really just locks around there. This thing is not moving. I mean, you have to pry this from my cold, dead fingers, as they say. And just the control that I have because of it, I can use it like a smaller knife. I'm not worried about slipping if I want to grip up on it and I want to do some fine work, if I want to do some carving. And the edge geometry on it just splits things apart because we left the thickness over here. And if I want to do some batoning, which I'm not worried about at all, I mean, he pinned this in, and I'm sure you glued it in as well. Nothing's
Yeah.
moving on this. With the beautiful extra liners, they give me a little extra girth. And this is what they call it a crowbar with an edge, but I didn't want something so big. And just to give you some examples, the famous Bark River, this one's actually an M4, right? So it gives you the
Beautiful knife.
same, we went similar, but you see how much more belly we came with the upswept belly? And I felt we could do that because of the Scandi grind. It just gives you sliceability wherever you're going to touch on there, right? And it's actually a similar thickness, but a little bit thicker. But the 3 steel is a little bit tougher than the 01, so that's why I wanted to go that way. But the difference really comes to the handles. See, Bark River makes a great handle in terms of their shape, and you can see the shape is similar.
They
The
do.
problem
Yeah.
is when it comes to girth. Try to see if I can get that. When you get to the girth, you see all the extra meat on that? Now, small-handled people can carry a large-handled knife, but the other way around doesn't work. This just about works for me. It's pretty good, but for long-term carving and cutting, I'm going to start to feel it. So I went with something bigger. Something that's a little bit more similar to that. Bark River came out with a Vortex, it's called. I believe Jim, his son, made it. And it's got a little bit more belly the way I was looking. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't have the beefiness. It's got the lines on the bottom, but you see that we went different with the width of the knife. I wanted shearability. I wanted something that I could really, really use hard. So again, great design. Curiously, the handle's a little bit thinner on this one, which is a problem for me. Then on the
I
other
would say
side, I'm sorry,
I
go
would
ahead.
say I would say Bark River does err a little on the slimmer sides with their handles. I've owned a number of Bark Rivers myself. They make a beautiful knife. They do err on the slimmer side, but I would say probably right in the average of most hands, eh?
Yes, agreed.
I know most of my handles would be smaller than what I built for you there. But
Agreed.
that's a facet that I've never wanted to get rid of with K knives. Although I do have my production line, which the Warrior here is a production model, and everyone will pretty much mimic this pattern. Every Warrior you get, except with the little differences with hand craftsmanship. But I have never lost the custom facet of my business. So if someone like you decides to email in looking for something that you haven't been able to find, we'll build it. If it's not already in my model lineup, we'll build whatever you need, right?
Well, since you're soup to nuts type guy, I could just tell you I want more liners in the knife or something, and we can build out the thickness if I'm happy with the shape. And again,
Right.
that's what we did. We actually stuck, even though this was pretty thick, if you can see, we stuck a black liner in there. Now, besides for aesthetics, it adds a little bit of girth. I know that Cody from Adventure Sworn is very into that. He has a number system, 1 through 5, on how thick you can order your knife, and
Okay.
he actually does the scales and the amount of the size and amount of liners that you want based on your thickness, which I think is
Yeah.
a great thing. So then the other end of it is, as we know, the original crowbars with knives, the BK2, which is just a beast. Yeah, everybody gets a smile when you, it's like taking out a 44 Magnum at the range. Everybody just
Yeah.
smiles, right? The thing's
It's
an
a
absolute
classic, right?
beast. And it's funny. Most people it's too big for. Actually, with my
Yeah.
hands, it's okay. It's absolutely fine. But it's a beast. It's big and it's heavy, right? And then you got the SE5, which is less known. People think an SE5 should just be a skinnier SE6. It's not. It's really a BK killer. They're both the same thickness. Right? They both come with the same original. I mean, this one comes with the skinny handle. This one comes with the SE handle. Also, nice lock in. But what we did and what we accomplished doing was I wanted a beast without the size and the girth. There's nothing that this knife can do, except maybe a little bit of length, that this knife can't do. And that's
Right.
exactly
Right.
what I wanted to come out with. I don't worry about it. I don't think, oh, do I need the SE because I'm going to do something with this that I'm afraid of damaging it? No. There's never anything that I can't take this out, barring length. And the length was something that we decided on for personal reasons, and I stand by it. So I really want to thank you for this. We're talking about heirloom quality. My kid's going to get this one day, but he's going to have to wait a while for it, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do another project with him. So it's enough about my stuff here. Oh, and again, the sheath, I'm sorry. You know, I just said minimalist sheath. He sat down, he sewed it out, he put this nice ferro rod holder on there, and that's it. The thing sits beautifully. Sometimes you get these minimalist sheaths, like I know one company, and they kind of don't sit right, you know? This one sits on my belt perfectly. You have to know what you're doing in terms of that, just where some people just slap a loop on there and it's not in a good spot. So
No, it's not
thank you.
always that simple.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice
So
to
what do
see
you
a
work?
piece of my work from years past.
That's still in good shape, and I use it. So what are you working on now, and what would you like to tell the viewers, if anything? You have more than one channel. Do you want to discuss that? Have you brought everything, you know, into one arena now?
I
What's going on for Kyle moving forward?
the goal right now, although I'm a big student of business and I just love business, and I've opened a couple businesses over the last few years, and I'm starting to hone back in and focus on knives because I truly believe in the product. I believe in the brand. I really absolutely love this business. And so right now, the goal this year is to just really improve on knives. What can we do better? Some of the places we've been lacking is in customer service. Speed, definitely. I've been largely a one-man band, and I'm working on changing that, improving the customer experience. So everything now, although I'm still using, YouTube is what kind of built my business. I built this huge audience just filming myself doing what I love doing. And then canned knives became something to sell to that audience, right? Well, now my YouTube channel is still used in a marketing aspect, but I've built a website, Canned Knives, which I'm working to build out to be kind of my portal. Everything to do with this brand, this is where you'd go. So I've still got um, the production knife models that are constantly coming through. And then I have not lost the facet where we started, those handle repairs, sharpening restorations, still very much a part of my brand. So if you go to my website now, knknives.ca, I've developed a portal there where you can cleanly read about my services and inquire, or direct contact line right to me. And then I still am heavily involved in custom knife production. So all of those emails still filter through my desk, and we'll build you whatever you can dream up. So if you've got something else in mind there, you got something floating around up top, send me
There's
your
a,
sketches, and we can do it.
there's always something floating. Are you still using O1? Have you used other steels?
I've played around with a few others, but I'm an O1 guy right now. I still really, really love the steel for a number of reasons. Uh, Beside the classic element of it that, stand the test of time steel, I really love that aspect. I love the edge capabilities of O1 and carbon steels in general, but I also love how serviceable it is for my clientele. A lot of guys that are knife guys are not sharpening experts, and they haven't put in, hundreds of hours in sharpening. And so when they jump on some of these new super steel bandwagons, although they have incredible edge retaining properties, they aren't sure what they're signing up for, I don't think. And I know that
In there,
because
guilty.
I know that because I still run a professional sharpening service here. So I all the time get mail-ins of knives. And if guys are sending in these super steels because they bought them thinking, this is the latest and greatest, the best thing ever. And once they lost that initial edge, which all steels do, once they lost that edge, they can't get it back. And that, to me, that's a big problem. That's a big bummer. And so I don't want that. When you buy a custom knife from me, I want you to be able to maintain it yourself. I want you to be able to put it on the stones, even if you've got a basic sharpening knowledge, just a rudimentary skill level. I want you to be able to get back a satisfactory edge yourself. If you
Yes.
can't, I'm here for you, but
And
I'll take your money.
we'll tell you where to go to that in the links. But just to that point, maybe we'll finish with this. I'm guilty of one of those people, just like when I got into guns when I was a kid, I couldn't shoot a 22, I had to shoot a 44 Magnum, I couldn't shoot a
Right.
30-06, I got to shoot a 450 Nitro. And there's always a cost associated with everything. So I'm definitely a knife nerd. I have all sorts of steels from the softest stuff to the hardest stuff. And the cheat that I have, because I can touch up, but I'm not the best sharpener out there, is I don't let my knives go dull. Now, again, if you're the type of guy like you probably were in backpack for a week at a time, you got to use your knives, not much you could do. Nowadays, there's so many little gizmos you can take with the little work sharps, little rods, stuff like that. And just to keep it touched up, you're smiling, you're going to yell at me, right? I'm not talking about to get it totally back, but what I do, like I carry
Sure,
an
sure.
M4, I carry a M4 pocket knife every day. I know if that
Yeah.
gets dull, I'm sending it to somebody like you. I just hit it with a rod every couple days or something like that, and I'm not using it on anything mad, and it has not gotten sharp dull in a year and a half. I got an
Yeah.
M390 I keep in another pocket, another beast that I know I'm going to have trouble with. I've had that for over 2 years. I haven't let it got dull. So
It would. That is nice. Yeah.
the thing that I found is if you're constantly, again, it's not honing. We're not going to get into all that in this video, but let's just say stropping either on a strop. I actually strop on a ceramic rod very, very lightly. I don't use it like a sharpener. I just use it as to put the edge back into shape. You can do
Yeah.
that. But that being said, everybody needing all these crazy knives. I spoke to Mike Stewart from Bark Steel probably about a year and a half ago when crew wear was all the rage. This is before
Yeah.
everybody came into Magna Cut. And word about that in a minute. And I said, if I'm bumming around in the woods and stuff, do you think I should go with this new crew wear or 3V? 3V, by the way, being my favorite outdoor steel. And
It's great.
he said, definitely go with the 3V. So why? At the time, 3V was known as hard and tough and whatever. He said, you know what? There's always levels. And at the end of the day, something's always going to be harder. 3V is still at the point where it is a super steel, but he, with his skill set, not everybody can do this. I could take a river rock and bring it right back to sharpness if I'm in the woods. He says, I can't do that
Yeah.
with crew wear. It's next level. The crew wear, fine. It'll hold the edge longer. So I went away from, I'm taking all these super steels with me, whatever, to like your point. Let's take some 1095. Let's take some L1. Let's take some SK5. If I'm
Oh, yeah.
banging on something in the woods, right, and I mess that up, even a guy like me that doesn't have huge sharpening skills, I can bring that knife back. I can't do that with these other blades.
Yeah. I think there's so much value. You mentioned on these little sharpening devices. I'll first say stay away from the speedy sharp. Anyone
Yeah.
watching this?
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, I get so many knives in here that have been destroyed by and I
So
I don't
actually, you
like that.
like the Speedy Sharp. It's giving you a lot of business.
Well, yeah, it's taking money from the hands of knife owners. So they just,
Yeah.
in my experience, I don't know how the original owners intended them to be used, the original owners of the Speedy Sharp product, but it's destroying some edges. But to your point, the the idea of just keeping up that everyday maintenance can really make your edge stand the test of time. You know, it can give you weeks longer, maybe months or years longer, in terms of if you're switching out EDC knives and you're not really thumping on a single pocket knife every day, then just that regular stropping every morning or a little ceramic rod touch up or something like that can keep them for months and months. Now, all knives will get to the point where you need an edge reset, right? You need steel removed, worn fatigue steel. You're starting to get weird recurves and strange geometry and stuff. So we bring it in that case and we just reset the edge. You've got a brand new edge. But then if you can keep up with it on your end, like you mentioned, that little stropping, a bit of ceramic rod if you have to, oh, you can get so much more time out of a knife.
Absolutely, absolutely. And two things also, stay away, and then we'll leave with this unless there's something else you want to talk about. Stay away from those carbide pull-throughs. They're the absolute worst. They
Oh,
just
yeah.
rip up the
Yeah.
edge of your knife. I see a lot of fishing people using them on their fillet knife, which those need to be the sharpest. But I mean, friends of mine have brought those over, and I'm like, what did you do to booger this up so bad? Oh, use a shark sharpener. Stay away. Just stay. It cuts
Agree.
steel. Just stay away. We
Agree.
agree on that?
Oh, absolutely.
And number two is, tell me if there's any truth to this. I'm talking about a knife in soft steel, like an outdoorsy knife or even a Swiss Army knife, that the edge is in good shape, but I just want to maintain it. If I'm sitting in front of watching something for a while, I actually strap stuff on my jeans. I'm just sitting here and I'm just strapping back and forth for a while. I don't know if there's anything to it, but maybe because there's so much dirt on my jeans, it acts like sandpaper. But it's just
There,
like, I don't know. You think there's anything to that?
there has been lots of I don't know if I want to call them myths because that implies it's false from the get-go. There's been lots of little tricks like that put around over the years. The act of stropping does not remove any steel,
Right.
even when you're except for maybe using, let's say you're using a hard-backed leather strap and you've put in a
The
compound
roosh,
paste,
right, right,
even something like now you're getting these diamond pastes and stuff. Those can
right,
actually remove steel, right? But
right.
short of that, like a clean strap, a leather strap, denim and materials like that, they don't remove any steel. But what they work to do is just to straighten up any little burrs and
That's
particles.
it.
And that little bit of warming friction and that little bit of abrasive fabric on the denim can actually put a little bit of life back in your edge for a short while. It can do that.
Thanks for thinking I'm not crazy. The advantage also is if there's somebody on the bus sitting next to me that I don't want sitting next to me and I start doing that, they usually move.
No, well, you even look at you even if you can find any content of true old barber shops that shave with straight razors, they'll even regularly brush them on their hands because even just the bit of friction in their hands and the material of your skin, you can
Wow.
put just a
Wow.
touch of life back in that edge. It can bring a shave from slightly uncomfortable to back in the comfortable realm.
Well, I've either noticed it in my head or reality, but I'm glad that somebody's validating me. Anyway, Kyle, I really, really appreciate your time. Again, I appreciate your knife. I think we're gonna have to do another project, but it's just so good. Like I don't know what else like I'm looking for, what I need, but
We
really,
can do more.
I'm glad that you got on with us, and anything you need from our end, we're happy to help you out.